Welcome to the Short Term Show, the show about short-term rentals and long-term wealth, with real property owners hosting real properties who are crushing it in the vacation and short-term rental space. And here's your host, Avery Carl.
This episode of the Short Term Show is brought to you by the Short Term Shop. 30-year fixed mortgages, tax benefits, and long-distance management training made easy are just a few of the perks of owning a short-term rental. The Short Term Shop can help you buy and learn how to manage your property from anywhere in the world. Just go to theshorttermshop.com and click Get Connected. Again, that's theshorttermshop.com, and we are brokered by eXp. See y'all over there. If you invest in real estate or manage properties, you need banking that's truly built for your business. Many traditional banks make it difficult to sync banking information across many of the personal finance platforms that we as real estate investors use every day. This is why I recommend Relay. Relay is an online banking and money management platform that's a perfect fit for any real estate business. First, there are no account fees, no overdraft fees, and no minimum balances, which means you get to keep more money in your pocket. Relay also goes above and beyond the banking basics to help you understand precisely what you're earning, spending, and saving. You get up to 20 checking accounts to organize and allocate income for things like day-to-day expenses, investments, or taxes. And if you have multiple investment properties set up as separate business entities, that's no problem. Relay lets you open unlimited accounts and access everything from one single login. Best of all, Relay makes your bookkeeping speedy and meticulous by giving you ultra-detailed transaction data and directly syncing it back to QuickBooks Online and Xero. The ability to have so many separate bank accounts and allocation options in my user dashboard has really transformed my personal banking experience. I will never go back. It takes 10 minutes to apply for a Relay account, and you can do it online at relayfi.com/theshorttermshop. So again, for more information and to open an account, go to relayfi.com/theshorttermshop. Hey guys, welcome back to the Short Term Show. Today we're going to talk about banking, and we have talked to Relay before, but today we have Yoseph West, the co-founder and CEO of Relay Bank, and they have some really cool tools geared towards short-term rentals and just real estate investing in general. And I would love for you guys to come away with some tips and tricks to make your banking life easier. We talk a lot about, making your short-term rental management and wealth building life as a whole easier, but banking is a big part of that. And Relay's done some really cool stuff lately. So without further ado, I'll let Yoseph introduce himself. How's it going, Yoseph?
Doing great, Avery. Thank you so much for having us. Should I do a quick intro, like quick bio?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
That'd be helpful. Yeah, okay, great. I'm Yoseph. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Relay. Relay is basically like an all-in-one like money management platform. We're really built for like small and medium business owners, and we, on a personal level, and from a business perspective, we're especially well built for like short-term rental owners and folks who invest in real estate. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But ultimately, our goal is to be this, we think about it as like a financial command center for small and medium business. And how do we help small business owners really understand what's happening in their business, what they're spending, what they're kind of making, what they're saving. And we just want to make that as seamless as possible.
Awesome. So how'd you, I'm going to start at the very beginning. How does one end up starting a bank?
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of vodka. No, I'm joking.
So here, hold my money.
Yeah, exactly. No, so the backstory is I've worked in SMB technology or financial technology for basically my whole career. And the core challenge that we saw over and over again was, there was a lot of great tools being built for small business owners, right? You can think about the cloud accounting revolution and how the small business back office has changed a lot in the last 10 years. But ultimately, most small business owners and short-term rental owners were really running their business off their bank balance, right? They're not thinking about the bills that are coming, that are coming due. They're not thinking about the income that's coming through. They're not thinking about their payroll, if that's applicable. And the challenge was that they were like, okay, I've got $100,000 in my bank account, or I've got $50,000 in my bank account, and I'm going to purchase this inventory, or I'm going to put this money down as a down payment. But it didn't take into account this full financial picture. And that was, a lot due to the fact that like most small business owners struggle to like pull together all the information that they need to make the best possible like financial decision. And so when we thought about that problem, we're like, hey, even if a small business owner is like really excellent at their accounting and bookkeeping, like 10 out of 10, they're just on top of it all the time. At best, they get like a 30-day in the rearview mirror kind of view on what's happening. And that's if they know how to read a profit and loss statement, right? Which, a lot of
A lot of people
small
don't.
businesses. Yeah. And there's no shame in that, right? This is just the nature of the game. And so when we thought about that problem and deeply caring about small business owners, we're like, how do we solve this? How do we make it easy for small business owners to have access to the information they need, the financial information they need when they need it? And we realized the only way to really solve this problem was to be the bank. And so that's where we started. We're like, okay, what would it mean for us to build a small business bank that really catered to the needs of small business owners? And that seems like almost like an oxymoron. Like, why would you ever have a small business bank that didn't do that? But most, business solutions are really rebranded consumer options, right? That
Absolutely.
kind of parade around as though they're built for SMBs. And so what we realized is that there's a couple issues. So one is like you want to have a bank that's deeply connected into all the tools and systems that you rely on as a small business owner from a financial perspective. So you want it to integrate well into your accounting system, as an example. Two, you want to be able to have your bank live in the middle of your financial workflows. Everything comes back to the bank account when you think about like kind of the small business back office and financial visibility. And so when you think about like that ability to deliver financial visibility, it's almost inherent in that is building a platform that allows for like a collaborative experience and one that thinks about the financial workflows for these small business owners. So something we were just talking about is, many people in the short-term rental community, including yourselves, Avery, like you follow the profit first methodology, right? Which is like really helpful, helps, small business owners get a handle on their finances in a pretty easy way. And so building a banking experience that allows for that, it makes that super simple, was kind of the, part of the overall inspiration is like, how do we make it collaborative, easy, and deliver that financial visibility? So that was like kind of the genesis of the idea. And then, how do you go about starting it? I mean, you start with like the customer. You're like, hey, what's the best possible experience? You're like, okay, if I controlled everything, the entire experience ourselves, what would that look like? And that's honestly where we started. And we're like, we know the answer is we're not going to be a bank because there's going to be some stupid rule. There's going to be some bureaucracy, like whatever it is. But let's go find out why we can't do this. And so you go find out and you got to raise $50 million. It has to sit in a bank account for 4 years. You got to hire a bunch of banking execs. You don't necessarily know what they are going to do for that period of time. And so where we landed was to build like, we have a partner bank on the back end of Relay. So they're FDIC insured. It just gives us kind of peace of mind and our customers peace of mind and allows us to focus on what we're exceptional at, which is building software that makes kind of financial workflows and money management really super collaborative and easy. And so that's really where it all started.
That is, that's a lot of stuff. The starting a bank, it blows my mind. Like I had coffee with the owner of a little small commercial bank recently, local to me, and he was talking about they started the bank 4 years ago, and it just absolutely blows my mind. It's too many things to think about that I'm like, how do people even do this and get people to be okay with like giving them their money? And it's very impressive, is what I'm getting at. Is I'm impressed by doing that. So let's talk about integration. So that is something that I think is definitely, I'm sure everyone is kind of getting around to it and heading that direction, but something that at least in my personal banking has really set you guys apart is being able to integrate with the things that I need it to integrate, for example, QuickBooks. So let's talk a little bit about that, the integrations piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we think about the key to financial visibility, you kind of like look at it as like you have a set of tools around your bank account. Like that, you kind of have your accounting system, you have your payroll, if you run payroll, you have, perhaps you have expense management, you have things that all plug back into your bank account. And so, I can't remember which, I don't know if it was a senator or congressman, but he was explaining the internet. He's like, it's a series of tubes. And that is kind of what like traditional banks feel like to me. It's like all roads, all the accounting system, all the roads really connect back to the bank, and the bank feeds back out. But it's done in this like archaic way where the information doesn't flow easily, right?
Mhm.
In the same way that, people want money portability. I want to make it easy to bring money into my Relay account. I want to make it easy to send money out, which we enable. Data portability is like equally as important. And this is something that is really hard for most banks to actually like achieve, because they're financial institutions and more risk focused as opposed to software focused, which is what Relay is. Like if you think about it as like kind of a cloud bank or a digital bank, it's definitely more software focused. And so when we think about QuickBooks or Xero, whichever accounting solution you're using, or if you're using Gusto on the payroll side, we've built native integrations into those platforms so the data flows really seamlessly. All the data is like standardized and clean, so you always have financial visibility. So for instance, if you have a short-term rental business where you have someone going out and making purchases for the property for whatever reason, you could easily issue cards to that individual and set up limits, and have controls like baked around it, and see that information flow directly into your accounting system, which is really powerful. And the thing that we hear from small business owners is that this just gives them financial confidence, because they can see what's happening.
That is definitely something that I have found to be really, really useful, is the allowance of others to have access to a card to use, like assistants that are paying things for me without actually having access to the full account. And then actually, this happened last night. I love the digital debit card that you guys offer. And I want to ask you a few questions about that in a minute. But where it's really come in handy for me is I've got my business Amex and my personal Amex saved like everywhere. And I was trying to book travel last night, and I can't remember if it was the hotel or the airline that didn't want to accept Amex. And I was in my bed on the third story of our house. My purse was at the bottom story, and it was like, we don't accept Amex. I'm like, well, crap. That is a long way down there. I'm very comfortable. I do not want to get up and go get that. So I just opened up my Relay account, opened up my digital card, and just, that is a MasterCard, I think, and just plug that right in. So that really, that's got nothing to do with actual banking, but it was just my own personal convenience that was awesome. So let's hear, like, let's go start to finish from the cards and the way that those operate, and, allowing other users and things like that. Let's do a deep dive of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So within Relay, it's like, as we said, all-in-one money management platform. We have accounts, cards, and like payments. On the card side, you can issue physical or virtual MasterCard debit cards. You can issue them in seconds. You don't have to go to a location. You can do it on your phone. You can do it from your bed, right? Like really, really easy. We see a lot of people you can spin up to 50 cards per business, which is really powerful. And what we see a lot of short-term rental business owners do is actually spin up virtual cards for each property and then purchase their furnishings just on that one card. And from like a financial visibility perspective, that makes it really, really easy for them to be like, okay, this is the amount that I spent on furniture, right? To make my, Airbnb or Booking.com or VRBO short-term rental successful. And so the nice things here are that you can set up limits, you can set up controls, you can freeze them at any time, you can change the PIN. And then additionally, you can also issue cards to individuals. And so one of the core challenges most small business owners face when it comes to their banking is that it almost always feels like an all or nothing equation. Either someone has access to all of my money, all of my information, or they have access to none of it. And so with Relay, you have controls. It's not a binary, 1 or 0. There's kind of like a scale to it. And so I could actually say, hey, Avery, I would like you to run this property for me, and I want you to be able to make purchases for it. And I could issue a card to you. And the only thing you would have access to is that card and any transactions related to that card inside of Relay. And so that gives me confidence to say, hey, I have limits set up around the spend. I can have full visibility. And if anything were to happen, I could also freeze the card at any given point. So there's kind of these controls and thoughtful kind of tools built into those kind of everyday financial workflows.
And it gives you the ability to delegate certain tasks without giving someone, like you said, the entire access to all of your money in that account, which I really like.
Yeah, 100%. And like what we see some small business owners do and short-term rental owners do is because they can spin up multiple cards, they can also spin up multiple checking accounts. And so sometimes what they'll do is they'll have an account that they're going to be like, oh, this is our, I don't know, just because we're using this example, like our furnishings account. And so they know they have a budget of say $10,000 to furnish this Airbnb. They move the $10,000 into that account, and then they issue cards against that account. And it's almost like a way to budget, to say, hey, that's the money. This funds are segregated. You're not going over to that $10,000. Once you hit that limit, that you spend the money's gone, right? And so, we see this. I think this combination of controls around cards is really powerful, but also with the ability to segregate funds between different accounts. And I think you guys do that with Profit First, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So we have several different businesses in Relay that have multiple different accounts under them, which I also think is really, really helpful, because in the past with other banks, it's been, this is the business account and that's all there is. But a lot of times you need those different accounts. Like you said, with the furniture, like maybe you have this is my Joshua Tree short-term rental business within Relay. And then you have the different accounts, one for furniture, one for paying cleaners, one for this, one for that. And you can do all of that. You have the ability to just separate things within the business instead of having to like sign out and get into another account and do all this really annoying stuff. That's a technical term. Annoying bank stuff. So that's been really, really helpful for us to be able to have the multiple. And, within each business, sometimes you have multiple income streams that all fall under that one umbrella business that you kind of want to pay attention to. So if you have your like short-term rental business, and then you have a bunch of different income streams with different properties, but then you want to have your long-term rental business separate. And then you have different income streams from those different properties. So you can organize to your OCD heart's desire. And that's really awesome. I'm not the most organized. I could be better at it, but I like knowing that the opportunity is there for me to do that if I decide to be, the best version of myself today, which I don't normally wake up and decide to be the most organized version of myself, but I could if I wanted to.
I think we all have that. I bucket that under annoying stuff we all have to do.
Yeah.
And like, I think, something you were touching on there is the ability to log into your Relay account and switch between your different entities really easily, and get financial visibility between them, spin up new accounts. It like takes minutes to spin up a new account. It's really, really easy. I think it's just like powerful to be able to like have the confidence that, hey, I go to one place and I have all my information, my financial information, right there.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content of our podcast, but you have additional short-term rental questions, we host a weekly live question session that you guys can join for free. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And if you head over to strquestions.com, you can sign up. So not only am I the host of this show, but I also own and manage my own properties, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about short-term rental investing. So please join us anytime for a free weekly live Q&A on Zoom. Sign up at strquestions.com. You guys do a lot of real estate investor business. Like you guys have a lot of clients that are real estate investors, not just small businesses, restaurant owners, any insert small business here. So what do you think sets you guys apart for the typical investor in real estate? I know we've already talked about a few things, but I'm giving you the opportunity here to point out some more. So what do you think sets you apart?
Avery, I so appreciate it. This is where I was hoping we were going. So I think the reason we are so good for real estate investors in general is that we built Relay in a way to be like natively collaborative. So we think about the ability to manage multiple entities and spin up new accounts really easily. So when you buy a new property, you might put that property into a new LLC, and then you got to open a bank account. That literally takes minutes on Relay. So that's like number one, multi-entity management, super straightforward. Two, collaboration. I can issue a card to someone, I can set up a role for them, I can set up limits, and I can set up control. So I have financial confidence that I can empower them and delegate to them to go and spend money as I need them to, but without worrying that something could go wrong in that context. And then three, I would say that the ability, like the thing we hear often is being able to centralize all your payments, like all your bills, because we do have like same day ACH, domestic wire, international wires, checks. You can do it all from Relay, whether we're talking about the web app or our mobile app for Android or iPhone. So doing payments on the go and increasing your cash flow through that is like really, really meaningful. And then the last thing I'd mention is just like if you're following the profit first methodology, I don't think that there's a better solution out there than Relay, because you can spin up these new checking accounts in literally seconds, name them whatever you'd like, and then you can do, we were talking about this before, like the percentage-based transfers between these accounts.
Yeah, I mean, you just reminded me, like, we really need to get Mike McAlloy on this show. But yeah, it really does. And it reminds me of, I don't remember where I read this. This was decades ago, like before I got into, not decades, I'm not that old. I am in my early mid 30s. So I'm not that old, but a long time ago when I was in college, before I got into real estate investing and all that, and I was working on tips, I used the envelope method. And there's somebody out there that I'm not giving credit to for the envelope method, but basically what I would do is in a drawer in my room, when I would get home from my bartending shifts, I had an envelope that said rent, an envelope that said, electric, whatever my bills were. And I would separate out my tips from the night and put them in each, allocate them out into each envelope so that I wasn't scrambling at the end of the month going, oh man, I spent all my cash and I don't have my rent money. No, it's in my different envelopes. And it's like the profit first method is a turbo, like much more sophisticated version of that, of just organizing your money well. And I think a lot of people get so caught up in how sexy short-term rental investing is. And, I'm going to be an influencer now and I'm going to do all this stuff, that they forget that they have to manage their fundamentals, like their banking, the income coming in well, in order to be able to take those next steps. And I think that, really has helped us, myself and my husband, Luke, a lot in that, of being able to organize and keep everything straight.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, I think the idea of getting back to basics, right? Like when you talk about the fundamentals, like that's like, if you look at you go to bankwithrelay.com, the messaging you'll hear throughout is this idea of like being on the money. And the people that like really make it over time are those that, obviously they're hustling, they've got grit, they're like, they're making the progress and they're putting in the work. But the other thing that they're doing is they're staying on top of their finances, right? Because if you have that dialed in, it's like a superpower, right? 90% of the population doesn't, they're not proactive. And so if you are proactive around it, even if you're not perfect, like none of us are perfect at this, right? Then you're so far ahead of the game. And I think that is the kind of key in this context, where it's like, how do you really understand what the levers are inside your business, and create structures, forcing functions that make it easy for you to look at them regularly, right? And like a Relay is one of those forcing functions.
Absolutely. So we are to the last 3 questions of the show. It's about that time. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions that we ask everyone that comes on the show. And the first question is, what advice would you give 20-year-old Yoseph?
Ooh, probably like buy more real estate or buy real estate, period. I think, going through university during the great financial crisis, I think all of us were like, oh my God, the world has ended once, it could end again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Why I ended up bartending, by the way.
right, yeah. And I think the best advice I could have given myself is just like buy. And anytime I was actually talking to someone that's part of some of your programming. I was like, what's your big regret, or like, what's your biggest learning? And he was like, yeah, I just wish I bought more. Like, I wish I did more. It's like, obviously, anytime there's like a good investment, you're like, oh, I wish I should have done more. So that would be the advice that I would give myself.
Okay. And along those same lines, what advice would you give a new investor or small business owner looking to get started today? I think I know what you're going to say.
Buy more real estate, obviously, and use Relay. No, I think, the way to think about taking a leap of faith or like making a bet on yourself, in my personal opinion and experiences, to think it in terms of risk. Like, all of our jobs are to think about like, what are the biggest risks, and then working through what those risks are and finding solutions to them. So if your biggest risk, for your short-term rental business might be like traffic from Airbnb. Maybe it's, finding other platforms, going on VRBO, or whatever it is. And so for anyone that is about to endeavor on this new path, like, my advice would be to think about what those risks are, and then build a list and work through it and think about what those solutions are. And I think that's like all of our jobs is effectively to be like risk managers. And that's what, managing those risks is what creates the upside for ourselves.
Managing risk, always good advice.
Okay,
last
it's not
question.
A little boring. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are, like we've been talking about, fundamentals. Those aren't going to change, and managing risk is one of those. So good advice. Last question. What is your favorite book that has impacted your mindset?
Ooh. I think the first one that comes to mind is Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography, Total Recall.
Oh.
He, like, if you ever feel like you're working really hard in your life and you're like, oh man, there's too much going on, read that book, and you see the number of things that he was juggling at any given time, especially in his like early career. That was like very inspirational. And then how he thought about risk. So like, one of the things he did just on the real estate kind of bent was, he was a bodybuilder and he was making some money there, but he wanted to be a movie star. And he ended up buying an apartment building so that he could like live in one of the units, and then have the rest of the units pay for his life and give him enough time to find the right role, because he would see that other bodybuilders who tried to make the transition would fail because they needed the money, so they take a kind of a not a great role. And so he always thought about those risks, and always thought like a couple steps ahead about how to position himself well. And so work ethic plus that kind of like foresight was pretty inspiring.
I had no idea that Arnold Schwarzenegger was a house hacker. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
I
cool
saw,
book.
actually, I was at Graceland a few months ago, and they had the real estate contract for Graceland from back when Elvis bought it, and he used owner financing. So it's funny when you hear these big movie stars that you think, they just drop, or Elvis, I guess, not a movie star. Well, is, and also he's Elvis music. But anyway, when you hear about these famous people that you expect to just drop tons of cash on everything, well, no, this guy house hacked, and this guy owner financed Graceland, probably, arguably one of the most famous houses ever. It's kind of interesting. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
Nothing
awesome.
to do with what you just said, though.
No, it's cool. It is really cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, I haven't read the Arnold autobiography. I'm gonna have to do that. Cool. I will check that out. Well, so Yoseph, is there anything that we did not cover that you want to say before we go about Relay?
I think the only other, like, one, obviously go sign up for Relay. Like, that's the number one thing. Go to bankwithrelay.com, sign up, takes a couple minutes, really easy to get started with us. The only other thing I'd mention, and you can see it in our like Trustpilot reviews. If you search Trustpilot Relay Financial, you'll find us. We really care about our customers. Customer service is so important to us. Every single person who joins Relay, they spend their first 2 weeks on customer support. It doesn't matter the seniority, someone who's just got out of college or, working for 20 years. Yeah, we'd love to service your business, and we'll be there to support you along the journey.
Awesome. And we do have a code. If you go to relayfi.com/ the short term shop, definitely check that out. And Yoseph, is there anywhere else that if they want to learn more about Relay or more about you that they can follow, like, comment, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, check us out on Instagram or Twitter at Bank with Relay. Yeah, I was going to say at bankwithrelay.com, but it's definitely at Bank with Relay. And you can find me on Twitter at YC West.
Awesome. Well, Yoseph, thank you so much. It's been super helpful, and I hope that all the listeners found it as helpful as I did, and we will catch you later. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.